When I met Craig, he was young, he was energetic. From day one, he's always had huge ambition.
He's incredibly driven. He can push himself to the absolute limit. He really cares about people. He cares about good friendships. He's wickedly smart and a bit of a prankster.
Craig really lights up the room. Whenever he enters, there's just a bunch more energy in the room, really good at talking to people and kind of drawing a conversation and a group together.
In our final year of uni, Craig came to me with this idea. Like all good engineers, we started by building something. Very first prototype of a Halter collar.
He came in with, I think it was a Barker's belt with a bunch of circuit boards that were strapped to it. The early days were very much a grind. Nothing worked. We didn't even have an app.
We finished up our last bit of the university and Craig and I got in a ute and we started just driving into people's farms. What do you boys want? You're like, oh well, we're making this collar. It's gonna herd your cows for you, whatever our sales pitch was.
We've now got hundreds of farmers around the world using technology that he's ultimately created, and it's making a difference for a lot of different people.
I don't think Halter could be where it is today without his optimism and his persistence.
When I think about Craig as a leader, he's always one to lead with action, and he'll be right at the centre of the chaos and absolutely loving it.
He has this ability to switch on and just work harder than anybody else would work on a problem.
Maybe he wasn't the perfect mould of what an engineering student should look like, but now he has achieved a huge amount.
He's the guy that has the crazy ideas, but is also crazy enough to go make them happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 Young Alumnus, Craig Piggott. Presenting the medallion is Akshima Mava, studying mechatronics engineering and heavily involved in the Faculty of Engineering's Mechanical and Mechatronics Student Association.
Gumboots, they are wonderful, gumboots, they are swell, 'cause they keep out the water and they keep in the smell. And when you're sitting round at home, you can always tell when one of the Trevs has taken off his gumboots. If it weren't for your gumboots, where would you be? You'd be in the hospital or infirmary, 'cause you would have a dose of the flu or even pleurisy if you didn't have your feet in your gumboots.
They did you a doozy with the song. So why weren't you the perfect model of an engineering student?
Oh, that's there's probably a little bit to that story, but safe to say, I didn't go to like a lot of class.
The VC's here, Craig. Come on.
No, in my fourth year of engineering, I was working at Rocket Lab. I'd started Halter. There was like a lot going on. There wasn't a lot of sleep being had, so class kind of dropped off. But I still finished my degree. But yeah, it was just lower down on the priorities at that point.
You were applying your learnings. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Can you give us the towny explanation? What is Halter? What does Halter do?
So we're effectively a tech company. We have hardware and software. The hardware is a collar. It goes on a cow, as in that video. And then the farmer uses an app to effectively run their farm through Halter. The collar does some like relatively simple stuff like, say, a Fitbit or an Apple Watch would, which you would expect. But the kind of niche or the breakthrough with the collar is that we're able to train animals to listen to sound cues. So we can actually shift these cows around a farm, so we can fence and shift, which means you automate a bunch of work on a farm and you can run these farms more precisely than you have in the past. So that's the core of the platform. The platform's kind of built over time. But for farmers, you save time. It's a more efficient, more sustainable and more productive system. So
It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you can go and see videos of Halter at work. Basically, you have made fences redundant, right? Like you can move beasts between different pastures 12 times a day if you want. You can send all of your cows a signal so they know when it's time to come in and be milked. It's extraordinary. So how does one know that you can train a cow?
I get asked that a lot. The truth is, like, at the start of Halter, we didn't know. And I remember thinking, like, well, that's the only risky part of Halter. Everybody builds apps and there's hardware everywhere, so all the rest of it will be easy. which was very wrong, but obviously. So no, we didn't know. It took us about a year to figure that out. Max, who was in that video, and I spent, the good part of a whole year just like working on that to see if a cow could listen and understand a collar. Growing up on a farm, it's like intuitively you think that's the case. These animals learn sounds all the time, like they know the sound of a gate opening or a fence being wound up for fresh feed has like a ratchet on it, and if you leave the ratchet on, that's like, there's a invasion of cows just like across the fence. So like there's all these kind of cues, and so I guess the hunch was like, okay, well, can we do that with software on a collar?
Yeah, there have been some kind of pivotal moments. I wondered if you could tell us the story of going to San Francisco on one of your early trips to the US. I think you're seeking a bit of funding early on, and you had a kind of dragon's den moment.
Yep. So we never had the option to like bootstrap Halter. I was a student, so I had no money. And we have a hardware product, which is obviously very expensive to make, or to develop and set up factories and stuff. So we had to raise money. We raised a little bit of capital here in New Zealand. I think it was like $300K, and which felt like all the money in the world at the time. And you buy a few T-shirts and hire a couple people, and there's none left. So we were like, okay, we need to raise proper money, and we went to the States. And so startups, you're always trying to focus on the riskiest part, which like the theory, the training the cow bit was the riskiest part. And so we're like, well, how do we prove that we can do that? Well, we'll do that with a live demo. And Peter Beck, the founder and CEO of Rocket was on our board, and he used to be my boss, and he was like, it has to be a live demo. Like, you can't do a video. Like, how boring is a video? Like, it's a live demo. Like, you ask...
What could go wrong?
Yeah. And you ask the investor, like, pick a cow and pick a corner, and the cow walks to the corner, and we were like, sweet. And so it's effectively what we did. It took us a while to make it work, but then hopped on a plane, and the demo worked. We were there for 2 weeks, and we left with, I think it was like $8.5 million raised off the back of that. So.
Yeah. And of course, there is a time difference with the US, which meant you actually had to put floodlights up for the paddocks, which I can imagine added another kind of dimension of stress. But
yeah, that's a reflection of my upbringing, where like my parents didn't really believe in travel, and so I got the time differences wrong, and so it was like 3 a.m. here in New Zealand, dark, and we were trying to there were cameras, and so people were running out like the night before buying big floodlights. We had like floodlit the farm. It was, the neighbours were complaining that the floodlights were...
You mentioned Peter Beck.
Yep.
Talk to us about your relationship with him. How did you meet him?
So I met him actually at a University of Auckland Velocity event. He was the speaker, and I, as an engineer, wanted a job at Rocket Lab. So it's like, sweet, I would go along, and there was free pizza and beer. And so I thought the worst case is free dinner, and best case is I get a job. And that's kind of what happened. I like hassled him at the end of the event, and then got a job at Rocket Lab. And that was about 10 years ago. So I worked at Rocket Lab for a year. I went to Rocket Lab because I thought it was this insanely cool engineering project, and it was. But the thing, I'd never heard of like startups before this, or anything to do with VCs, and that was this like the window into this world of startups that I thought, holy shit, this is really cool. And so after a year at Rocket Lab, I was confused that no one was doing that for farming or agriculture, and so I left Rocket Lab to start Halter, pretty much saying to Pete, like, I just want to do this, but for farms. And I thought it was going to be way easier than it was. But yeah.
What's your vision? How far do you think Halter can go?
So agriculture covers half the world's landmass, or habitable landmass, and the whole industry hasn't been digitized. For various reasons, and so I think our goal is to be like the operating system for agriculture. We started with dairy farms in the Waikato, and we've been expanding internationally and across into kind of all pasture-based farms, and we'll keep going from there. So if it's agricultural farming, we want to run it through Halter. There's a lot of opportunity to be more efficient, to be more productive and more sustainable. So once you can get that world into like the digital world, a lot of the products you build aren't revolutionary. They're things you would expect. It's just they weren't available to farmers because farming's been so manual. And so, that's the long-term vision.
To be clear then, can other animals be trained?
We have, yes, that's it's definitely possible. There's a lot of cows, so we're starting with them. But there's literally billions of cows, but it can work on really any animal. We haven't tried like sheep and stuff. We get asked about that a lot, but
Yeah. I know one of the challenges for young people who are ambitious, come from engineering backgrounds, going into the startup world, are the other dynamics that kind of make or break a business, whether it's marketing, whether it's legal stuff, whether it's HR. How have you found learning on the job all of that vital stuff?
Yeah, well, the first few years at Halter, I was like, sales was probably easy, marketing's easy, because we were just trying to build the product. And I think you never get too, I don't know if this is good advice for everybody, but it works for me. I just try not to look too far ahead. Just focus on all the things that are on fire right in front of you. Put them out first, and the other stuff, it's too daunting otherwise. When we were trying to train a cow, the collars they would last 2 hours. They weren't waterproof. The range on them was 100 meters. They cost thousands of dollars to make each. It took us, the first farm we did, took us 3 months with a team of 3 people there every single day. It cost us $100,000 to set up. The farmer's paying us I think $10,000 a year or something. We were never going to pay it off. We were losing money every month. It was kind of someone we broadly knew. There's just lots of things. You just have to focus on the thing in front of you. So, and then you just wake up every morning and move the ball forward.
Deal with the fire in front of you. You could maybe have a side business selling fridge magnets with that. I mean, New Zealand prides itself on innovation, right? A history of innovation, whether on the farm or whether in the Hauraki Golf, in an AC50 or in a Hamilton jet. What do you think we can do to better foster that culture of innovation in the 21st century?
Speaking from I don't know if I have the perfect answer to that, but speaking from my experience, the single most important thing for me was seeing it. So was my time at Rock Lab and having Pete there. And so I guess I think out of Rock Lab now there's probably been a dozen Halters or startups. Out of Halter there's probably been another 6 or so. So I think people experiencing it, seeing it, having these role models around and it being kind of culturally accepted is just the most important thing. I don't know how you do that per se. I'm always personally very excited if someone from Halter comes to me and says I want to start this business. I'm like, God damn it, but epic, And I've personally invested in a bunch of them, so definitely very supportive of that. And because I remember when I picked up the phone to Pete, and I don't know if we have time for a quick story, but I was working technically, I think, 4 days a week at Rock Lab, or 3 days, and Pete wanted me to do 5, and I was I'm at uni, but I wasn't really going to uni. I was working at Halter.
He was.
And so I had to ring Pete and be okay, I've been doing this thing on the side called Halter, and then I was fully expecting him to be hey, well, sounds like you're a bit busy. I'm pretty busy, so don't worry about coming back. And he cleared his calendar. He was so excited. He gave us he was I want to be on the board. I want to put cash in. This is when Rock Lab was 50 people. We hadn't even launched a rocket. So, it was the fact that he was so supportive of that was so instrumental to the start of Halter. And I think we just have to keep rolling that forward to every other person that wants to start a business and give it a crack. And a lot of them won't work. That's startups, right? And some of them will. And
That's amazing. Good luck.
Cool. Thank you.
Please join me in congratulating distinguished alumna Craig Piggott. And let's meet our next recipient.